Today is the 23rd of October 2025. The day before yesterday, I spoke about how we can deal with the first 7 armies of Mara and how we can become victims of the 8th army of Mara, that is ingratitude and obduracy, which arise from mana, conceit. We discussed the characteristics, function, and manifestation of conceit, and then explain how conceit gives rise to ingratitude, makha in Pali. Makha, depreciation, is the tendency to undermine or ignore the virtues and kindness of others. It is not merely a lack of gratitude, but an active denial of it. Such a mindset not only blocks humility, but also creates mental distance and disrespect, even toward those who once nurtured and uplifted us on the path. In this way, when a meditator begins to think that they are superior to other meditators or even to their teachers, a mental state of depreciation arises. In such a state, they no longer feel the need to show respect, listen to others, or even heed their teachers. The day before yesterday, I mentioned that when conceit, mana, is present, the mind becomes rigid and stiff like a pillar. Both mentality and physicality, both physicality and the mentality. A person may appear hardened. The head hold high, the chest expanded, and the posture tense because of the inner hardness and rigidity. The mind becomes inflexible, unwilling to bend or yield out of humility or respect for others. It resists correction, dislikes being advised, and refuses to lower itself, all due to the proud, unbending nature rooted in conceit. In the field of meditation, a meditator affected by such conceit may begin to lose respect for fellow practitioners and even for their own teacher. That mental state of rigidity hardness, and inflexible unwillingness to bend or listen is called obduracy, being arrogant. The simile is that of a cloth dipped into a liquid mixture cement. Before being dipped, the cloth is soft, pliable, and flexible. It can be folded, shaped, or moved in any direction, but once it is soaked in the cement and allowed to sit, it becomes stiff, rigid, and unyielding. In the same way, when the mind is free from conceit and pride, it remains gentle and adaptable, ready to learn, to listen, and to grow. But when conceit seeps in, it hardens the mind like cement. The once soft and receptive mind becomes inflexible, unable to bend or yield. It resists advice, refuses correction, and cannot bow in humility. Such is the nature of obduracy, the mental stiffness that arises from mana, conceit, and give rises to makha, depreciation as well. Just as a tree that refuses to sway in the wind is the first to break during a storm, a mind hardened by obduracy cannot adapt, learn, or grow. When a meditator becomes obdurate, they cling stubbornly to their own views and experiences, dismissing the guidance of teachers or the insights of others. Even when gently corrected, they resist and justify their stance, seeing humility as weakness. This inner stiffness blocks the natural flow of wisdom, and isolating the mind in pride and isolating the mind in pride. So imagine when a meditator no longer receives guidance from their teachers, not because the teachers have stopped giving it, but because the meditator's heart has closed itself to hearing. The words of wisdom may still be spoken, but they fall on deaf ear, unable to penetrate the hardened surface of pride. Without receptivity, the boat becomes narrow. The path becomes narrow and lonely. Progress in meditation slows, stops and even past understanding begins to fade as the mind cut off from humility loses the freshness of learning. So in this way, the meditator falls victim to the eighth army of Mara, the Mara of ingratitude and obduracy. The once humble and receptive mind becomes hardened by conceit, closed to guidance, and distant from gratitude. Unaware, the meditator begins to walk not on the path of liberation, but the path of Mara, where pride replaces humility and wisdom is overshadowed by self-view. This is why in the text it is mentioned that for one to truly progress in meditation, a meditator should conduct themselves as if they were ignorant, even though they may possess much knowledge and experience in practice. The attitude of being as if ignorant does not mean denying one's understanding, not it doesn't mean that denying one's understanding. The thing is to develop a beginner's mind, open, curious, and free from pride. When meditator keeps this humble disposition, they remain receptive to guidance, will to learn, and ready to deeper the truths beyond their current experiences. In this way, humility becomes the foundation for wisdom to mature. Venerable Rahula, the son of the Buddha, would pick up a fistful of sand every morning and make a wish. May I have as many teachers as there are grains of sand in my hand. He knows that a good teacher is like one who points out a hidden treasure of gold. When we conduct ourselves as if we are ignorant, with humility and gratitude, we come to truly appreciate those who guide us on the path of liberation. And if conceit arises at any moment, immediately recognize it clearly and with strong mindfulness, then note and eliminate without delay. If you do not fall prey to this eighth army of Mara, you may still face the ninth army, which is gain, reverence, praise, and fame. As you develop deeper in your practice, your manner and behavior will naturally improve. You will begin to look different, more venerable and impressive. At times, you may share your experiences with others, which can inspire deep faith in them. People may then offer you gifts and donations. This is the first battalion of Ninth Army, that is gain. At that point, you may even start to think that you deserve these gains, that the respect and offerings are rightfully yours because of your effort and progress. Once you begin to receive such recognition, you may start to expect. You may start to expect bigger and greater rewards as well. Feeling entitled to more appreciation and support. But it is not just material gain that arises, you also receive reverence, the respect, admiration, and good behavior people show toward you. Admires naturally emerge from the some circle, some community. When you share your experiences with them, they may come to think highly of you, elevating your status in their eyes, and they may openly praise you or quietly speak about you behind your back, saying things like, "Oh, how good he is in practice," or how deep her experience and insight are. The admiration can quickly lead to fame, where your reputation spreads beyond your immediate circle and you become well known within the community. While fame can bring opportunities to teach and inspire others, it can also become a subtle trap. It can become a subtle trap. The more well known you become, the more your ego may swell, and the harder it is to remain humble and open to learning. Even if you are not actually receiving these gains, reverence, praise, and fame, you might still expect them simply because you feel you deserve them. You may start to believe that you are somehow special are superior to others and therefore entitled to more respect, special treatment, entitled to more somehow special or superior to others and therefore entitled to more respect, special treatment, or priority from your fellow meditators or from center. This could manifest as expecting preferential behavior, accommodations, or recognition that other do not receive. If your motivation becomes focused on gaining these things, you will never make true progress. You are fueling your greed and forgetting your real goal, which is not to earn gain, reverence, praise, or fame, but to be liberated from these very sources of suffering. But if you are truly understand your ultimate goal and cultivate contentment with what you already have, you are much less likely to fall victim to the ninth army. So remember this one, if you are truly understand your ultimate goal and cultivate contentment with what you already have, you are much less likely to fall victim to the ninth army of Mara. When the heart is grounded in the desire of liberation rather than worldly gain, praise, or fame, the temptation of these rewards lose their power over your contentment. acts Contentment acts like a shield, preventing greed and pride from taking root and allowing you to stay focused on the path of awakening. Therefore, know your goal, be content with what you already have, and observe, note the temptation of these rewards to overcome the ninth army of Mara. So here three things: know your goal, second, be content, and to observe and note the temptation of these rewards to overcome the ninth army of Mara. If you do not overcome the ninth army of Mara, then the 10th army also will come to challenge you. This is because when you start to receive gain, reverence, praise, and fame, the mind begins to assume that only you are worthy of such rewards, or that only you possess the greatest amount of gain, praise, fame, and followers. This sense of exclusivity and superiority fuels further pride and attachment, making the obstacle on the path even greater. When you think that only you are worthy of these rewards, or that only you possess the greatest amount of gain, praise, fame, and followers, it naturally follows that you view others as unworthy, and this is 10th army is characterized by self-exaltation and disparagement of others. Self-exaltation and the disparagement of others. It arises when the mind not only elevates itself above others, but also looks down upon them, seeing them as less worthy, seeing them as a less worthy and less accomplished. You do not simply elevate yourself in terms of gain, praise, fame, and followers, but also with regard to your practice, experiences, and understanding of the Dhamma. You may think, I am the one who is hardworking, others are not. Or I am the one who can sit calmly or meditate longer than anyone else. You might believe I am the one who has gained this or that insight. Others are nowhere near to it. So such thoughts create a subtle but powerful form of conceit combined with self-exaltation and disparagement of others. This mindset separates you from others and strengthens the sense of I and mine, which is precisely what the path is meant to dissolve. He may mostly be looking outward, focusing on others rather than turning his attention inward, constantly comparing, analyzing, and judging those around him. This means he is neglecting the true duty of a meditator to observe the presently arising objects of the mind with mindfulness and clear awareness. When the mind is distracted by thoughts about others, it is off the path and cannot make real progress. Many meditators might have experienced this themselves, that feeling of constantly comparing, analyzing, and judging others. It creates restlessness and agitation, putting the mind away from its natural calm and insight. Recognizing this tendency is an important step toward returning to the true practice of observing the present moment with openness and equanimity. Here, the 8th and the 10th armies of Mara are mainly rooted in mana or conceit. Conceit is one of the most difficult mental impurities to overcome. Conceit is one of the most difficult mental impurities to overcome. Even an anagami, non-returner, still possesses conceit, and only an arhat completely uproots it. It arises not only when one feels superior, but also when one feels equal or inferior. Even an inferior person still harbors conceit, no matter how lowly their position may seem. People can be divided into three categories. The first, the superior person, one who is better than others in certain areas such as wealth, education, knowledge, skill, occupation, or lifestyle. The second, the equal person, one who considers themselves on the same level as others. The third, the inferior person, one who perceives themselves as less than others. Each of these three types of people can possess three corresponding types of conceit. I repeat, each of these three types of people can possess three corresponding types of conceit: superior conceit, equal conceit, and inferior conceit. When combined, these form the 9 kinds of conceit. The superior conceit of a superior person is easy to recognize. The superior conceit of a superior person is easy to recognize. What is more difficult to see is the conceit of an inferior person. For example, a poor person, might think or say, "Yes, I am poor, so what? Why should I care about others?" Or even a beggar might think or say, "Yes, I am a beggar, so what? I beg and eat without depending on anyone." So this is the manifestation of inferior conceit of the inferior person. The most effective way to deal with conceit is through the development of insight into impermanence or contemplation of impermanence. When one contemplates impermanence deeply, everything begins to be seen as transient, changing. Over time, this contemplation naturally leads to the understanding of non-self, anatta. One realizes that there is no eternal I, he, she, or mine, or gains, reverence, praise, and fame are all impermanent. There is nothing to hold on to or cling to. Sometimes even a simple reflection such as, one day I too must die, is enough to make the ego subside. Then self-exaltation and the disparaging of others are naturally suppressed. In addition, at times this self-exaltation and disparagement of others can give rise to miserliness and jealousy. Miserliness is defined as the mentality that wishes all good, all good or wonderful things to happen only to oneself and not to others. Miserliness in Pali it is Matsarya. Matsarya is defined as the mentality that wishes all good or wonderful things to happen only to oneself and not to others. It is a mental state where you don't want other to have what you possess. For example, if you have money, you may be unwilling to share it, or even fearful that other might see your property. Similarly, you may not want others to receive the gain, reverence, praise, fame, or followers that you have. You might resist others achieving what you have achieved or experiencing what you have experienced. So, miserliness can arise in relation to both present and future achievements. One aspect is not wanting others to attain or have what you already have. The other is not wanting them to achieve what you expect to gain in the future. The two aspects. The one aspect is not wanting others to attain or have what you already have. The other is not wanting them to achieve what you expect to gain in the future. Its nature is to conceal. The nature of Matsarya, miserliness, is to conceal or to withhold to hide one's possession or qualities so that others cannot share in them, because it cannot bear the thought of sharing or seeing others enjoying similar success. That's why its function is characterized by non-endurance and inability to tolerate others' gain or happiness. Text mentions the 5 kinds of miserliness or stinginess. The first, avasa machriya, stinginess regarding one's dwelling, monastery or place. The second, kula machriya, stinginess regarding one's supporter or family or followers. The third, lava machriya, stinginess regarding one's gain. The fourth, the vanna machriya, stinginess regarding one's reputation or qualities. Reputation or qualities. It also includes stinginess about appearance. This fourth one includes stinginess about appearance. For example, not want others to be as good looking as oneself. The fifth, Dhamma Macharya, stinginess regarding knowledge or Dhamma. This is about the Macharya, the stinginess or miserliness. On the other hand, jealousy is the mental state. In Pali we call issa, is the mental state that cannot bear to see or hear about the prosperity of others. Cannot bear to see or hear about the prosperity of others when others achieve success, respect, or happiness. Jealous arises as discomfort or resentment within. It does not rejoice in others' good fortune. Instead, it feels disturbed and unhappy when others prosper. These two mental states, jealousy and miserliness, issa and machriya, are the cause of hostility, conflict, and ill will. They explain why two people, two friends, two families, two communities, two countries, or even two brothers and sisters can become enemies. All such divisions arise from these two unwholesome mentalities. Once the king of Devas approached to Buddha and asked, What is the feather by which gods, humans, asuras, nagas, Gandhabas, and the many other ordinary beings, though they wish, may we live without enmity, without violence, without hostility, and without ill will, yet still live with enmity, with violence, with hostility, and with ill will. In this question, not only humans are mentioned, but also asuras. Asuras means demons. Nagas. Nagas means dragons or serpent beings. Gandhabas. Gandhabas means heavenly musicians. And devas, deities, are mentioned in this question. The Buddha replied, "It is the feather of jealousy and miserliness, Issa and Matsarya. Because of these two mental defilements, gods, humans, asuras, nagas, Gandhabas, and the many other beings, though they wish to live without enmity, without violence, without hostility, and without ill will, still live with enmity, with violence, with hostility, and with ill will. Beings cannot live happily while these two mental states, jealousy and miserliness, stinginess, remain within them. They disturb the mind, destroy peace, and prevent harmony with others. Therefore, it is crucial to recognize, observe, and gradually eliminate them through mindfulness and wisdom when they arise. In addition, one must cultivate their opposing wholesome qualities. The antidote of miserliness, stinginess, is generous volition. Dana Chaitana, the generous volition, a mentality that delights in giving or sharing and letting go. And the antidote of jealousy is mudita. Mudita, appreciative joy, the ability to rejoice sincerely in the success and happiness of others. By developing generosity and mudita, the heart becomes open, light, and peaceful, free from the fetters that binds beings to conflict and suffering. In this way, we can resist the 8th and 10th armies of Mara and overcome miserliness, stinginess, and jealousy. At this point, I would like to elaborate further. Earlier, I mentioned that people can be categorized into into three labels: the superior, the equal, and inferior. They text advise that our mental response to those different types of people should be guided by wholesome qualities. When you meet or see someone who is superior to you in virtue, knowledge, skill, or achievement, you should cultivate mudita, the rejoicing mentality. I repeat this one. When you meet or see someone who is superior to you in virtue, knowledge, skill, or achievement, you should cultivate mudita, the rejoicing mentality. This means taking genuine delight in their success and qualities. If you fail to cultivate mudita, jealousy may arise, which feeds the mental defilements and strengthens Mara's influence. Then when you meet or see someone who is equal to you, you should cultivate metta, loving kindness. Without metta, a sense of rivalry or competition may arise, leading to ill will or envy. Loving kindness towards equals fosters harmony and reduces conflict in thought and action. This does not mean that loving kindness should be limited only to equals. Metta can and should be extended to all beings, regardless of their status or relationship to you. And when you meet or see someone who is inferior, you should cultivate karuna, compassion. Without compassion, the tendency to belittle, criticize, or bully may arise. Belittle, criticize, or bully may arise. Compassion helps us respond to the weakness or suffering of others with care rather than uh, arrogance or disdain. The karuna is a mental state that does not allow one to simply sit back and watch when others are suffering. I repeat, karuna is a mental state that does not allow one to simply sit back and watch when others are suffering. It naturally inclines one to wish to remove or alleviate the suffering of others. It is important to note that it does not matter whether one is actually able to remove suffering or the suffering is ultimately alleviated. The key is the genuine intention. The genuine intention and heartfelt concern for the well-being of others. So it is the opposite to cruel or harsh anger. Karuna, compassion, is the opposite to cruel or harsh anger. For example, when someone causes suffering to others or simply sits back and watches others suffers, people would say, "Oh, what a cruel person." Karuna, in contrast, arises as genuine concern and the wish to alleviate suffering. So in this way, the cultivation of mudita, the rejoicing mentality, metta, loving kindness, and karuna, compassion, acts as a safeguard for the mind, preventing jealousy, rivalry, and cruelty, while countering the subtle influence of Mara. By training the mind in these wholesome qualities, we also cultivate humility, empathy, and moral integrity. That's why may you all cultivate mudita, rejoicing mentality, metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, to overcome jealousy, rivalry, and cruelty, and may you develop insight into impermanence, suffering, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self, to overcome the arising, to overcome the army of the conceit, the army of the ninth and the eighth and the 10th army of Mara.